the move I loved the most was Malik Monk re-signing with the Kings.
Loved it.
This was a clear sign of taking loyalty over maybe a couple extra million. He's comfortable in Sacramento. He's playing with De'Aaron Fox. I don't think that this re-signing automatically means that he's going to start, but this is a bargain deal for the Kings, getting a player who I think is clearly worth 25 plus mil for 17 mil a year. It now gives them a chance to make a big move, for a player who might have a bigger contract who they can bring in. I think that wing spot is the biggest need for them because I think Keon Ellis next year starts at the 2. When he started, they post All-Star break, they were 9th in defensive rating. He changes their point of attack defense drastically. Malik Monk was just the first step in now focusing on this draft and adding some size to the team. I think Khalil Ware from Indiana, I think he's awesome, and I think he's going to be awesome. And Yves Misi. I think those are two bigs that, with their pick, they're right there for the taking, and they would make this team much better.
This was obviously a no-brainer for the Kings. We had how many conversations about potential destinations for Malik Monk, believing that he wasn't going to re-sign because he was going to be due for so much money that obviously the Kings weren't going to be able to match due to the new restrictions of the player something bargaining, the collective bargaining agreement, whatever the fuck. That being said, if you're the Kings, this couldn't have gone any better for you. Now you go and you can, like Joel said, you can find future pieces to try and build this core that you do have. And I would still consider this a young team. Obviously, understanding Keegan Murray's still getting going. He's still young. De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, and Domantas Sabonis, who is the oldest of the trio.
Like 27.
But still very young and just entering his prime. A great player. Needs to have things that he improves at, obviously. Needs to work on his mid-range jumper and needs to find a way to be relevant on defense. But if you go ahead and you do bring in another guy that has size and that can help relieve some of that tension off of him so that they could really lock in on that offensive side that we know that they thrive in, the Kings can get back to being in that playoff contention.
Ooh.
The playoff contention, a.k.a. playing 7-8 seed. The West is really good.
So good.
But understanding Keegan still can get better. De'Aaron Fox had a couple, it was like a month and a half of not playing his most efficient brand of basketball, but we saw him take a step in his three-point shooting game. Malik Monk was just robbed of Sixth Man of the Year, and Domantas Sabonis is an all-NBA caliber player who obviously does have deficiencies, but is still a great player in his own right. You mentioned Keon Ellis and his impact on the defensive side. If he can start becoming a consistent three-point shooter, that'd be huge. But I understand the logic of trading for a LaVine if they are going to trade a Horder and Harrison Barnes. At least you get consistent offense when he is on the court. Let's preface that. He has had his history with injuries, but Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes are inconsistent offensive players. But if you bring in Zach LaVine, and if he is healthy, that's a strong addition to an already solid offense that would only get better.
If they have the 13th pick, if Ron Holland somehow slips to 13, get him. Take him. Don't waste no time. Because, the Kings are in a weird situation where, yes, Fox can get better. How much better? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Yes, Sabonis can get better. How much better? I think defensively he'll always be, an issue. Keegan Murray can definitely
That's
get
the
better.
X factor to me.
Keegan can get better for sure. Keon Ellis they'll have good players, but in the West, you kind of need a guy and then another guy with you, unless your team is so freaking good. And Kevin Huerter, Harrison Barnes. They don't have their 2025 first-round pick. They have 2026. You probably can't trade it. And then they have all their first-round picks after that. I don't know who can that get you, what type of star. That's the guy who you're gearing for because Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes isn't really getting you anybody that's in the top echelon of the NBA talent. So it's really the Kings are going to have to, get better internally. And I think it started with bringing back Malik Monk. I did think he was going to go somewhere else for a little bit more cheese, but like you mentioned, he did find a home in Sacramento. He loves playing under Mike Brown. Mike Brown just got his extension, which was huge because I think he's a great coach in the NBA. So bringing him back was tough. Whether he starts, it's all going to be dependent on what they do in this draft and what they do in this offseason, who they bring in. But they do need to upgrade their talent because, like you mentioned, the West – it's so crazy. You got Memphis coming back. You got OKC still around. The Pelicans still around. All these teams, what is Houston going to do this offseason? Is the Spurs going to pull the trigger on Trae Young? There's so many timelines where the Kings could legitimately end up not in the playoffs, which would be tough, which they weren't in the playoffs this year. So the West is just such a wild roller coaster that the Kings, you have like, there's small rooms for error, and the Kings are going to have to build internally to make this program work. But, shout out to them for getting Malik Monk back, because that was huge. That was probably their number 1 or 2 priority. It was either Mike Brown or Malik Monk, but those were their top 2 priorities. They got them both in. Now it's about drafting the right guy, whether it be a backup big or finding a gem at that wing spot, and then trying to just improve this roster in the offseason with the little money they have.
Yeah, easy signing. I mean, we had a lot of conversations, like you said, Drew, about, potentially a team like Orlando, a team like San Antonio, a lot of different fun spots, I think, just for player movement. But in a realistic perspective, this was, I think, the best spot for Malik Monk. He found a home in Sacramento after having a very rocky start to his NBA career. This is really his first big bag, too, of his NBA career, getting nearly $80 million from where he was just a few seasons ago, where he's coming over and getting, what was it, a minimum contract at first, I think he signed, or 2 years, 10 mil, something like that,
2 years,
right?
18, might
be. Or 10 mil a season, yeah. So a very small contract in comparison to what he just got now. But I think when you find a home like Malik Monk has, your best option is usually to stay at home. You could get greedy, even though I wouldn't have looked at him any other way if he would have went out and tried to get 25, 30 million from a different organization. But the fact that he stayed in Sacramento, and although this season was a failure compared to the previous season, where you are a top 3-4 seed in the West, you make your first playoffs, and God knows how long was it, 20 plus years at that point. Progression isn't always linear. It's not always just first round, second round, third round NBA finals, right? So this Kings team, I think, is kind of experiencing that, where you shocked the NBA 2 seasons ago. You're one of the best regular season teams. You lose in 7 to the Golden State Warriors. The next season you come back, don't even make the playoffs. It's very easy to kind of get down yourself, get down the organization, and just say that this team has no way to improve or see no real ceiling. And although it's difficult to see a path for them to win an NBA finals or even get to the NBA finals with WCF, I think that him being there at least gives them a chance to kind of play this thing out, because he's, in my opinion, their 3rd best player. We've seen it in spurts, especially playmaking this season, that he's still improving. He's still an efficient shooter. You're able to get gems like Keon Ellis, who made big strides in the second half of this year. Of course, you drafted Keegan Murray just a few seasons ago, and Sabonis and Fox are still one of the better duos, not the best, one of the better duos in the NBA. The next step for them, like you mentioned, Riv, is just trying to find a way to win a playoff series, right? I do think they're at a disadvantage talent-wise with a lot of teams in the Western Conference, because even having De'Aaron Fox as your best player is probably not saying much when you compare it to the rest of the best players in the Western Conference. Like that, what's that? Well, like the 9th best player in the West, maybe, if not lower on that ranking.
Shit, some number 2s is better.
That's like you have Devin Booker or KD. However you look at that as a number 2, who I'm taking over De'Aaron Fox right now. But I think this was great for both parties. Malik Monk staying in Sacramento, you're building something there, and for the Kings, there really isn't a better option out there than Malik Monk. I would look at them very sideways if they trade for Zach LaVine, because although the talent is there, I think we're going to get another Bradley Beal situation where you're going to look at the end of next season, how do we improve the Kings? Oh, wait, we can't, because we're teetering with that second apron, because we're paying Zach LaVine $40 million for the next 2 or 3 seasons.
It's also just going to be hard understanding that. First off, let me say, I like the statement. I agree. Progression is not linear. Very well said. However, if you're Sacramento, how are you going to recruit high-end talent to your roster, especially when you're a middling team? It's extremely
in California.
That too. It's also extremely difficult to consistently hit from picks 11 to 15
for sure
every year.
But I just don't think you have to make a desperate move. Zach LaVine feels like a desperate move to me.
Zach LaVine makes their defense one of the worst in the league.
Zach LaVine's been a part of multiple good defenses.
When he tries, he's all right.
I'm not buying it, bro.
The Kings are defense already.
If LaVine was just on a decent contract, I'm all for it.
You think that there's a difference between Malik Monk and Zach defensively?
Malik is coming off the bench. He's only playing 25 minutes per game. Yeah. I think if you have De'Aaron Fox, Zach LaVine, Keegan, and Sabonis with Keon Ellis, I think that's still a pretty bad defense.
I'm not sitting here giving you an opposite solution, so I'm not really defending it well. But I also think last season we had this same conversation with Bradley Beal. It's like, what else do you want them to do? It's like, not that.
It's different because I agree with you. I think Zach's money is going to be hard to move. The only good difference, Zach doesn't have a no-trade clause.
That's fair.
Yeah, Zach LaVine, 2022, 2023, he averaged 25. And then this past season, he averaged 20. 25-4.
Well, he played.
What's his games
25
played been
games.
these last like 3 years?
25 games in 2022, 2023 was 77, and then the year before
Shit, that's
it
77.
was
He was still
67.
hurt. He played hurt the whole
He
year.
was.
So 2 out of 3 years. I mean, you're playing 67 plus games. That's still more than good enough. But of course, last year was
I
bad.
think with the Kings is just about trusting your guys internally to get better. I think they just have to really hope Keegan takes the biggest leap, and that's why I think Zach LaVine, like from an entertaining perspective, like I think he would make the Kings fun. He would, but would it affect the growth of Keegan offensively? I think something like that would, and I think Keegan, who from his rookie year to his second year took a 3-point per game jump. You're hoping in his third year, even if he takes the same 3-point per game jump, he's at 18 and 19 a game. If he makes a bigger stride, he's a 20-point per game scorer who also flashed all defense potential this past season. I think they just got to bank on him getting better. And with Keon Ellis inserted into the lineup and keeping Malik Monk, you just keep the continuity on this team and you make moves around the edges. Like, for example, if they like the Knicks when they got Josh Hart, getting another role player who fits around the current guys, because Zach LaVine, it's a big piece to just plop in there after him not playing essentially a year, and now he got to fit with the brand new roster. I think it'll be a lot to ask for him, and a lot for the Kings to be competitive if that were to happen. If something happens to Zach LaVine, who you can't really trust his health.
I just think Horter and Barnes are expendable.
They are.
That's why
They
I
are.
feel like if those are the two pieces being put in a package for LaVine, that's not a negative for the Kings. The negative becomes the second apron.
Yep.
I made that trade in 2K. The Bulls lineup is
And they accepted?
I overrided it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The package, well, the lineup for the Bulls now, because I'm doing a rebuild for the Bulls, is Josh Giddey, Kobe White, 1 or 2. It doesn't matter really who's the 1 or 2. Harrison Barnes.
Who would you have run the one? Who would you want to have the ball in the hands more?
Kobe White's the 1.
Okay, I agree.
I think the 1 or 2 matters.
Vucevic is still on the team, and then Harrison
off my,
Barnes.
like,
Kevin
measurement,
Huerter was on a heater for me. He averaged like 17, and he only played like 24 minutes. I stopped playing 2K after I did that rebuild because I ended up winning the championship.
So wait, who's
With
the
that
two?
I
No, with that core, yeah, I did.
No way. Bro.
I
playing on
didn't play.
rookie?
I sinned. I
So wait,
sinned.
who's the 2?
Kobe White.
How
Well,
the
no,
hell did you
Josh
win a
Giddey, sorry.
championship with Kobe White, Josh
Hey, brother,
Giddey?
it's 2K. Yeah, I'll be honest.
God damn.
No,
I
I'll
feel
show
away.
you. Yeah, no, I won a championship with them, and that's
Who
when
was
I stopped playing
MVP?
2K.
Finals MVP.
I think it was Josh Giddey.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Like
no,
if
for real.
like that was if somebody walked up to me like, yo, like who's the 1 or 2 in your team, I'd feel disrespected. Like I'm the one.
The reason I ask is because I would want it to be Kobe White, but I also would rather Kobe White play off ball than Josh Giddey play off ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
He's right.
he is unfortunately right. But Kobe need that rock.
I agree.
need
No, I
him to
agree.
Get in there. That's like, you know.
That's why I stopped playing 2K. Once
said
that
this is
happened, I
bullshit.
said I can't rebuild them because I was aiming to get a top 5 pick in 2025,
You know you could
and they
force
ended
your
up making the
L's.
playoffs.
Should have forced your else.